We just finished our previous episode, so there's been no break for us. There will have been a break
marathon,
for you, depending on how long it takes me to edit. But we covered ideology in the news in Venezuela, but we missed the other big bit of news. And remember, we got to try to put in ideology here. Try to think of this ideologically, which has a couple terms associated with it that are not always associated with ideology, which is kind of like what we established last week, just to pull through this. Everyone believes it to the point where it's hard to believe otherwise. It's acted out in practice, rituals and so on. And in the last case, it has a material cause in the last instance. So with that said, let's review Luigi's Mansion.
It's a me.
Spooky times.
Kaczynski the second.
I say that because I've misread his name so many, but no. This is a new reality. And especially over this word hero. Do we have a new hero, folks?
A new folk hero.
Is his name actually Luigi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Luigi.
wait. Wasn't that his ID, his fake ID?
Mangione?
That's so good.
No,
That's
his
so
name
perfect.
is Luigi Mangione.
Oh, it is
Luigi
actually his name.
Mangione.
Okay, I thought for some reason maybe it was like
Oh, I think they published his real name.
yeah, okay.
So we're
okay.
talking
So
about the guy that 3D printed a gun and executed the CEO of a major healthcare company, right? Not the green guy in a hat that does plumbing.
I think his
Exactly.
real name is the Adjuster, I think.
The adjuster. Yeah. Can someone maybe recap the story?
Okay. There was a job creator. He was walking down the street.
You douchebag.
This guy with a mask comes out with a 3D printed gun and shoots him like 3 times. And then
After
gets
he'd
on a
been
bike.
carving words onto the bullets in the bush at the side of the
He
road.
put words on the bullets too. What was it? Deny,
And
So
depose,
depose, deny, and what was it?
delay.
Delay.
Just checking my eBay shopping cart.
Delay, depose, and deny. Uh-huh.
That he got in a bike, got in a taxi, got on a bus, and went to Pennsylvania. Decided to eat an Egg McMuffin. While he was at McDonald's, apparently, this is their story, a McDonald's employee recognized his eyebrows and called the cops on him. So the Pennsylvania cops picked him up. And this was 5 days later, I think?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They took 5 days to find him.
Oh, and the job creator that he killed was the CEO of the largest health insurance company in the United States. And if you're not in the United States, a health insurance company, what is it? It's something that your job pays for so that you can go to the doctor, who you have to pay if the insurance company says that your claim doesn't go through, which they can do for apparently a variety of reasons, including the AI just decided. So if you're confused, it is confusing. If you live anywhere in the advanced world, this is obviously a barbaric, inhuman process. And this is the biggest and worst of the bunch. Maybe it's the biggest because it's the worst.
Messed up, huh? Messed up. So where do we start with this? Because I think his manifesto will be interesting to read. I like your take on his sudden position of being a moral hero or the heroic.
And I forgot the most important hero qualifier too. He is a class traitor also.
His parents are capitalists. That's true.
why do they call it
From class valedictorian to class traitor, it's Luigi.
why do they call it a manifesto? Isn't it literally like a paragraph or
I know it's more so somewhere between a suicide note and a manifesto.
I think we should read it, but the best part of it is he's like, I'm not a dork. I'm not going to make these arguments for you, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. So sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. We should totally read it.
Yeah, it's very short. Who wants to go for it?
I'll open it here, but you know the nerd jock dichotomy. This is a perfect jock manifesto because Americans typically they don't really like nerds. They look at them like side-eyed.
Yeah, it's very short.
He's like, I saw some documentaries and this is pretty messed up. That's why I did it. So if you wanna end up a hero, don't be a dork like Uncle Ted writing books. Everyone knows what the problems are already.
The Unabomber Ted.
yeah, just keep it short. Keep it short.
That's how it opens. I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. This is him addressing the feds.
To the feds. I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. There we go. Thin blue line, right in the first line.
Within ideology already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, basic CAD. I think that's an engineering term. A lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank number 42 in life expectancy. United is the indecipherable largest country in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I don't pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed. Example, Rosenthal, Moore. I assume that's Michael Moore.
I guess.
Yeah.
Decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It's not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty.
Dropping mic. Huh?
It's incredible stuff.
There's still allegations as of this reading. Nothing is
proven. It's just alleged, but I do love the way that he's like, I don't pretend to know that much about this, but I am going to kill this guy, even though I don't know that much about this. I love that. I don't know enough, but I also am going to kill someone based on that limited knowledge. I love it.
It's also really silly to say that this is the 4th largest company in the US, which is for sure not true. Like, what about Amazon?
For sure not true. Yeah.
Amazon, Facebook,
BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street,
Exxon, like all the oil companies. Why don't I look this up?
Defense contractors? No, not even close.
I think they are larger than Exxon.
Okay, they're number 17, right in between MasterCard and Costco, which is fucking huge.
It's huge. I mean, there's yeah, of course they're huge.
But like, what the hell is Broadcom? Anyway, Broadcom, Walmart, Tesla, Meta, Alphabet.
Yeah, my list has them 17. But yeah, right. You did say that. Sorry, Costco and MasterCard. Yeah, Costco and MasterCard.
So Diego, what is the healthcare situation in Mexico? Do you have private health insurance for anything?
There is a public system, which is fine, I guess, depending on who do you compare it with. But also private insurance is not that expensive. Like the US is on a league of its own in this topic. Like the US is totally fucked when it comes to health insurance compared to the rest of the world. So it's very much a US problem. I think the rest of America, like some countries have it better than others. But like, for example, SUS in Brazil, which is the Sistema Único de Saúde, the unique system of health, it's pretty good. It's pretty decent.
They are indeed the most expensive healthcare in the world.
For not the best results.
They rank fairly low in actual quality of health, I think.
Can we go into the ideological reading?
I want to tell you just some horror stories to put this into perspective for you. I mean, not even horror stories. This is a normal story. My sister had her kids in the States. 15 grand. And this is with insurance in the hospital that she works for. She's a fucking nurse.
What?
15 grand a kid. And that's like, because the whole thing, apparently they just say this costs 80 grand and then we'll cover only
whatever percentage,
85, 90% of it. I don't know.
Kids are already horrible by themselves for free. Do you imagine paying for one?
No, they say like the majority of people are in the States are like one medical emergency away from complete bankruptcy.
Yeah.
It is also true.
I have been in the hospital way more than the average person. Like 4 surgeries, 3 concussions, 100 stitches, something like that. And I have paid a total of like $150 at the hospital. 50 is probably for the concession, and then like 100 because I had to buy a sling one time. So it's just been insane backwards world to hear all the stories that Americans have been posting for the last week or so. It really is like Luigi's Mansion, because the walls keep changing position. The ghosts are invisible till they suddenly appear to bite you in the ass.
You think that's why Trump wants to make you the 51st state? Because it's a market growth for you? Is a market growth for those companies?
Maybe. Americans don't come for me, but on my private time, I complain that we don't have dental covered.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
You're spoiled. You're very spoiled.
I know. We're speaking from a place of privilege.
You're
Dental's
spoiled.
coming.
Very, very, very much spoiled.
The NDP made the Liberals pass it.
Did they? Don't say that out loud.
Good for liberals. Can we go into the ideology of this? Because I'm craving the ideology is just like oozing everywhere in this text. Like the fact.
Do you mean the ideology of the response or the ideology of the guy?
No. I'm looking at like right now just the text. Like if we can take
the manifesto.
Text, his text. Okay.
Yeah, can
Quotes.
we take? Let's pretend it's his text because we also don't know that. Let's pretend it's his text. Just like whoever wrote this to say to the feds, I'll keep it short, in the respect that, because I respect what you do for our country. It's like, okay, so this guy, it's already, because you see, like, for example, the way he sees and frames the problem and comes up with the solution is all within liberal metaphysics. Does it make sense? Like everything is like the way he frames the problem and the way he frames his position and the way he finds the solution, everything is within liberal metaphysics. Like because he's blaming the individual, like individual action, rationality, freedom of choice, and it's like the free market is creating this, but it's the greed out of one individual that is producing this as a problem. So the elimination of the greed of one individual is my role within the system.
Yeah. I mean, I feel some hesitation about using this term liberal metaphysics. Like I get what you're saying. I think like there's a way in which it makes sense. But I guess the thing that stood out to me more was sort of the contradictory nature of his statements, right? It's like the fact that on the one hand, he's like, I respect what you do, but I'm going to take matters into my own hands. So maybe just setting aside the liberal metaphysics part and just thinking about the contradictory nature, that it's like almost like there's battling ideologies within him, right? Because there's like kind of a, I don't know, anti-corporate greed ideology, but then it's mixed with like a loving our country, love American institutions at the same time. I guess, is liberal metaphysics like a thing? Like is that something that we can put a circle around? Like that's kind of maybe why I hesitate with it, because it's just it feels like it could mean so many different things.
I agree. It's probably too vague. Like I can say.
I think you can call it a liberal metaphysics because it is pro status quo insofar as the status quo is liberal. But for him, the problem is not systemic. The problem is greed, and the greed of a few particular individuals who are playing power games. Yeah. And the other problem, similarly, is that people are aware of it, but they're not doing anything. Also, it's implied they're not doing anything as individuals as he is. So I don't think he wants a world fundamentally different from this one. He just needs a few CEOs to go to therapy class in order to work on their greed problem. And then if they refuse to, then we'll shoot them.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. He's just taking out one rotten apple.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Yeah.
There's some strange contradiction here with the fact that he ran away and it took him 5 days to find it. Meanwhile, it seems like this is a confession. This is like, I want to make this easier for you. I respect you. But then the actual chain of events was like he ran away and they only caught him because he got, I guess, an employee at the fast food chain he was squatting in called him out. He would have kept running. What would he have done with this message? Why did he write this?
My guess is that he expected to get caught immediately, and then he didn't get caught, and he was like, what the fuck do I do now? And then he was like, I'm going back home for a McDonald's. Like, I didn't plan this far at all. Like, I expected to get caught like almost immediately. Like, these 4 days are like so vague.
Totally.
Like, I was supposed to be in jail already.
Didn't he also get to Pittsburgh and then start going back east? Which,
yeah. I think he expected to get caught immediately.
I
really
don't
believe he
understand the
expected to get
the first five lines of this. I don't really understand. What does he mean? This is trivial. Here, I'm just going to help you figure all this out. And then it doesn't really get meaningful until he says the parasites had it coming. And then I'm like, oh, here we go. This is Kaczynski style. But then he doesn't really, then he just presents like a couple facts. So they had it coming. Very strange. And then for this to be called a manifesto, like what is it?
Also weird.
We call for this and we call for that. That's not a manifesto. There's no demands here. There's no vision of the future organization that this is going to inspire people to join. I don't understand anything about what's happening in this case.
It's also strange that, like, I also found it quite kind of fascinating, like, to go back to the way he said, you know, I hope I didn't cause any trouble. I respect what you do for the country. Like, because, you know, when I first read that, it kind of reminded me of a feeling that I've sometimes had when dealing with like an institution that I hate. When I'm talking to some worker for like a cell phone company that I hate, and it's just like, well, you're just doing your job. Like, so it's kind of funny to me that he's sort of almost giving that impression to like the FBI. It's like, oh, like, you know, I hope I'm not causing you too much trouble. But he is also saying like, I appreciate what you're doing for your country. But then I guess like the irony is like, you know, if we read in this sort of like hate people, not systems, then why are you just killing this one person? Right? It's like you're just like attacking one person, which does nothing to affect the system.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Just going to replace them with somebody else. And it's just going to give the capitalist class another reason to clamp down on security and everybody else.
Yeah.
It's not going to lead to anything.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't think that's necessarily true. We don't know, but I don't think that's necessarily true. And if you look at the very last line, because you said there's no manifesto elements in here, the last line says, evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. So the first implies that he's acting and he expects that there to be follows.
Oh, it's more of a justification.
I think that this is not my own take, but Baudrillardian take on terrorism. Terrorism is forcing... It's not necessarily changing the system with your action. It's forcing the system to change itself. So that's what, for example, what he says is the success of 9/11 is 9/11 forced America to prove what it was by rampaging around the Middle East for 25 years and spending $3 trillion on those wars. So in this case, if the capitalists decide, okay, now I'm going to build a bunker, I'm going to march around in a private army every time I go to a meeting, this would make symbolically clear, or visibly clear even, the class distinction that I think is being touched on in this whole event that so many people are reacting to. Like, this is not this, as opposed to anything else that has happened lately. This is not a right-left thing. This is CNN to NBC to what's that?
Fox News.
What's the Zionist guy?
Shapiro?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro. His comments are the same as the CNN comments, are the same as the NBC comments, which are like, you guys are out of touch, you're stupid.
It's class comments.
Yeah, go check my Instagram. I was working on this. But I think is not nothing, and I'm not sure yet if it's something, but I don't think it's nothing.
I agree with your take, Pills, that in the end, like, for example, the response from the hegemonic media, and when I say hegemonic media, I mean all media, like, because all private media, even beyond the left-right posturing, which I think is controlled opposition, like you guys discussed with this guy, One Penny. Like, I think it's kind of controlled opposition, the distinction between left and right media.
Did you call him One Penny?
What was it?
Shout out to One Penny.
One dime. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
No, that's
one penny.
That's a sneak diss because pennies are discontinued in Canada.
I almost missed that. Yeah.
Well, what did he say? What did he say?
I said 1 penny. What was it? 1 dime?
1 dime.
Yeah, 1 dime. But what did he say?
So the notion of controlled opposition.
Oh yeah, got it.
Yeah, so right. I think most media, like, beyond the notion of control opposition, which, like, they're posturing to be more left-leaning or right-leaning. Yeah. What they don't talk about, and is why it's important to bring back Baudrillard, is that the spectacle is there to hide the material conditions and the material relations. And what I think Pills is trying to point out to why this event is important, even if the guy is not aware of it, because the guy is still within ideology, within control opposition, thinking that it's individual actions that promote change.
What escapes
spectacle And in the response is that what like Phil's saying, what is forcing the system to evolve is that now we're saying that CNN in this matter is just like Ben Shapiro. Like they're both defending material structures of power. And what I think escapes this as an event that is worth analyzing from a critical point of view is that it reveals the class antagonism.
You know, I saw that Marjorie Taylor Greene apparently says that she fears that this CEO killer, his actions could lead to single payer healthcare.
Such a cool name. No. The CEO killer. Oh my God, I will buy that comic in a heartbeat.
But yeah, it's funny. She was like saying that, God, I hope this just doesn't like bring up the fervor of people who, you know, have been pushing for socialized medicine.
Is that utopian? Maybe she's utopian. Maybe we're all utopian.
Yeah.
But what was just attributed to me by Diego, this is not really what I'm actually saying here. That's more like if we're comparing Debord and Baudrillard, that's the Debord view, that the spectacle is veiling class antagonisms that are now suddenly appearing. Whether or not that's true, it's not what I'm talking about exactly, I don't think. I'm more interested in this event as a news event because that's what makes it an event for us. Because the news talking heads, they are here to translate, or what we could say another word, they're here to exchange things that happen for stories about what happened. They're playing our consciousness for us. So often this is about whatever you want to call it, manufactured consent, spectacle, saying a bullet happened to pass through a Palestinian toddler. And they are experts at it such that it works almost all the time. But this time, it's not working. Their translation just hit a wall here. And their exchanges never work on everyone, right? There's always skeptics. But this time, it's not working on anyone. They are trying to say, he's insane, he's psychotic, and this works because they're used to it from school shooters. It's their usual script. But everyone down here sees clearly that that's not the exchange that took place.
Yeah.
Before anyone knew who did it or what he had written, everyone knew what had happened here, as opposed to the other dozen or so shootings that happened in New York in some period of time. No one was worried that they were next. No one was worried that they are going to be a random target for a psycho, because it's immediately obvious why this guy was targeted. We know we're not in danger here. But the news, they flubbed so hard because they are used to us nodding along. And the nodding along might work insofar as we're disconnected from an event, but when this event is so integrated in so many people's just day-to-day experience, everyone's got a story about this, that's when it fails. It doesn't work. The trade that they're trying to make doesn't work.
Pils, that's so good. How is the media going to create empathy towards the CEO?
He had kids.
Oh, that's
why Elon Musk showed up to the meeting the day after with his kids. You saw that?
Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're trying to create some kind of sympathy. It's the capitalist class response.
Elon Musk has also been tweeting a bunch of stuff about how healthcare in America sucks, though. Like, I was surprised. I saw him retweeting stuff about, like, why do we have such poor results when we're paying this much? And he was retweeting graphs about, like, the amount of money that America spends on healthcare versus other industrialized countries. And he's like, why are we paying this much and getting nothing? So it's just funny. I'm surprised.
It's interesting, the agreement across the political spectrum.
Yeah.
What this guy has allegedly done, or this murder, this assassination, whatever you want to call it, anyway, has created a lot of sympathy from across the spectrum. But I wouldn't read too much into that, because obviously, if you go look at the Fox News versions of this story, it's all the conservatives talking about how it's Obamacare and the Democrats, and it's all their fault for this situation, right? And with obviously Fox News has no fear about just going into the Marxist class warfare narrative and being like, this was an act of anti-capitalism. These are ridiculous. This is what I think one article in Fox News even said, this is Occupy Wall Street 2.0. I don't understand the similarity between those.
Occupying their brains with a bullet. Yeah.
Yeah. Like just the Fox News is on another planet, is a tabloid from Mars, but whatever. That's what they're saying. And then CNN just sort of I don't know what you want to call them, the centrists. They just kind of give you this he didn't talk to his friends or family for a month or two leading up to this. And they don't really go into the class warfare perspective, but they all do sort of acknowledge that this has brought up some kind of class or some kind, at least widespread discontent with the wealth of CEOs. The Fox News is just like blaming corporations for controlling all the money and making their lives miserable, straight out of the Marx and Engels playbook. That's like, they just go right into it. They have no fear of that shit.
Even Fox News agrees like the system is bad or something like that.
They all agree, but why?
And CNN and every single person says, okay, well, the system is bad. And then also, but this is not the way to solve it.
Yeah. They moral approbation all around.
It's a weird contradiction to give people is like, yes, this is bad, but you can't do anything. There's nothing.
There's no solution.
This is the wrong way to deal with it. And also there are no other ways to deal with this problem. So just get fucking used to it and don't do what this guy did. Like that's the message you're getting. And
an appeal to stop being toxic. Okay. I have an example of CNN, their propaganda. So look for the ideology that's mixed in here.
And we have seen how some people on social media have glorified Brian Thompson's murder. There has been an avalanche of comments supporting it. Last week, a former Washington Post reporter said, quote, people wonder why we want these executives dead. In just the last 24 hours, social media users have seized on the suspect's appearance. It's yet another sign of the toxicity of the public discourse in the U.S. Let's bring in CNN's chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. Brian, I mean, we have to say from the get-go, I mean, obviously, and it should go without saying that a murder like this is just unbelievably tragic, and he has a family, and it's completely uncalled for, full stop. What do you make of the reaction that we've been seeing on social media? It seems to underline this toxicity that exists in our culture.
Yes, humanity versus inhumanity. That's the dividing line here. And I think most people, including on social media, are on the side of humanity. They don't want to see a father and a businessman killed in cold blood. But that minority that is out there, it's a minority opinion that's very loud, especially on social media, is expressing a kind of inhumanity. And I think it's almost kind of like they're saying, well, healthcare companies are inhumane to us, so we're just trying to treat them the same way. You know, this is a very, very complicated topic, and yet people, especially on these social networking sites, are trying to distill it into black or white, or in this case, the color blood, and some are actually calling for the deaths of these executives and these leaders. What they really want, I think, is reform, but instead of calling for political reform, the kind of measures you were talking about earlier this hour, they're making it very simple, way too simplistic. And I think, Jim, this is what we see in an environment, in a culture where people will say things behind a computer screen they would never say to a person's face. This is a very vivid demonstration of that.
Yikes. Well, he did say it to his face, didn't he? Or at least to his back.
Yikes. Yeah, very tone deaf, very risky. These guys are appealing to humanism. I will say fuck humanism. That was always bullshit. But he's kind of right in his take of saying that the problem is the system, so people are revealing against the system. And this is where, for me, ideology becomes very evident, in the sense that the guy, even though he recognizes that the problem is systematic, the solution was individual. You know, like the framing of the problem and the framing of the solution itself is within individualism. It's like individuals acting in the world, is their free will, their reason, their intentions and desires. It's not the system itself that is fucked. You know, and then again, it goes back to this notion that, father of a family and, you know, have empathy and whatnot. It's again, since we cannot understand how many lives are being like shredded to pieces mechanically by algorithms choosing where to deny, depose, and what was the other D? Whatever.
Delay.
And delay, yeah. Since we cannot identify those material relationships of power, of the deaths caused by deny, delay, and depose, we can only like scapegoat a CEO and say, okay, this is it. This is what I can do.
I saw a different talking head at they assembled a little table of experts to talk, and one of them, she said like, I don't understand why he didn't just write his congressman. Violence is never the answer.
So dumb.
I don't know if is this what ideology feels like? Like when you feel like you're witnessing some events unfold and there's just such an insane lack of perspective all around that you just want to talk about a million different things. Like, how many people have been murdered in New York alone this year? How many people have died in the States from, and that's just the United States, from mass shooters? And yet all the gun companies are keeping the, like, is a disgusting and abysmal lack of any sort of perspective except just a monomaniacal desire to defend this guy because he is rich. And just like, who's expressing the inhumane view here? Like, I don't understand it. There's no, in the stories I look, there's no connections made to, oh, well, you know who else was almost assassinated not too long ago? Donald fucking Trump. Oh, you know how many people have set themselves on fire in protest of other things, not just healthcare, like the war in Palestine, in front of like army fucking officers from the Air Force have set themselves on fire. Like, I find these things so like, it's just, that's what ideology feels like when it's present. Maybe I'm more attuned to it. Maybe I'm not. Maybe this is just, it just gives you that sick feeling in the back of your head that there's some slant here being worked, and it's just horrific. It's horrible.
I made a distinction that I'd like to canonize if I can, at least from my own perspective. Ideology is not really something that can be made explicit. There's no particular utterance that you can say, this utterance is ideology, as opposed to this other one that's not. Ideology is a structure.
Yeah.
As we've been reading the last couple of weeks. So, Eric, I think sometimes it helps saying, like what you just said, is this feeling ideology? Because it makes you ask whether you're insane or whether the structure that you've been taught to think in is insane. But this CNN clip, we can't say that it's ideology distinct from utterance. I would just call this propaganda. Maybe even we can call it
humanism,
class propaganda. But it's propaganda that's structured ideologically, which is to say, in this case, don't you realize this poor man is just like you? He has a family and his kids are crying because they miss him so much. The ideology underneath the propaganda in this case is something like violence is always purposeless. It's always insane. Violence is never the answer.
Yeah, but even that is such a hypocritical point of view, because it's like violence is never the answer. You know, when it's in my country and it's done to people that look like me, but violence is always the answer when it comes to other places and other people that I don't give a shit about.
This is in a country that has not been at war for 10 years in its entire history.
Exactly. It's like violence is never the answer. It's like, oh my God, you have no history in school curriculums or what?
The other thing, I mean, maybe I haven't been paying enough attention, but I guess like the other thing that I find sort of stupid about that is like, who serious is actually defending this guy's like actions, right? Like, is there anyone who's actually serious? Like, it's like, okay, a couple fucking idiot dweebs on social media are saying like, yeah, like based, kill this guy. But like, is there anybody who's actually like, who matters? Like who, like, you know, a figure on the left or anybody who like, who's saying like, I don't even think fucking Hassan Piker or any of these like dipshits have been saying like, yeah, rah, like kill this guy. Right. Like, it's really just like a couple idiots. And then the media is having this like overreaction about like, oh my God, I can't believe people. It's like,
I think you might not be paying attention.
Yeah.
It probably is a minority who will say this individual act was a good choice and the best one. But it's a majority that either think it's justified or they sympathize with why someone would do it.
Maybe there are some. I haven't been paying enough attention, but I was just going to say, like, I don't know, Eric, didn't you share this like article from a Marxist, and they like go in and into writings where they talk about like how like killing one person is just a waste of time? Like, it's a total waste.
It's not good.
It's what Lenin calls individual terrorist acts, which are inexpedient methods of political struggle. They said we are not opposed to political killings at all, but he says as revolutionary tactics, individual attacks are inexpedient and harmful. They do not condone them. That's what, like, they were like anarchists during their day trying to murder people, and it was a big thing to prove yourself by killing someone important. And the Leninists, the Bolsheviks are trying to say this is not helpful. That's not why kind of what I was saying earlier is like this murder. What he actually did is not, you know, people sympathize with kind of what is being expressed around what he did, but people don't sympathize specifically with this clear act of some kind of desperation.
And even if you take away the morality, right, and you just think from a purely strategic perspective, I don't think anybody would be like, yeah, good idea. No, it's just a stupid idea.
Yeah, even if he asked around and said, hey, should I do this? People would be like, no, you probably shouldn't do that. That's not constructive.
As part of the Marxist committee of the podcast, I will say like the right reading will be to say they're going to be replaced by a different CEO, and they're going to become more efficient at executing the algorithm and doing more depose, delay, and deny. And they're actually going to kill more people indirectly by denying healthcare treatment, which is going to be accelerated by the fact that this independent event was done without a class analysis and without a material reading of reality.
It was the same. I'm pretty sure I probably said something similar with Trump, but you can say the same thing, would all this have happened if Hitler was just assassinated? Like, okay, maybe there are like extremely weird things about these individuals that make them unique, but a capitalist or a fascist dictator, whatever, that's a persona, that's a role. Anyone can fill that role. If you kill someone else will be placed into that role.
Exactly.
As always, I agree with Comrade Eric.
You know what? I'm seeing this differently from you guys, evidently, because, like, don't you think this would be a different state? Wait, what do you think would happen if the monthly mass shooting didn't happen in a preschool? What does the USA look like if every mass shooting for the last 20 years was replaced with a Fortune 500 CEO shooting? Like, what do you think the gun laws, for example, would look like then? Would anyone be able to get a gun anymore? Would Congress pass the CEO Protection Act and it would be like illegal to publish their names in the press? So it would look completely different.
Maybe you're into something. Elaborate, Pills. What do you mean?
I just don't think. Well, in fact, I know that they're not equal, and it's fine that America has a quote unquote culture of gun violence now because of who dies from gun violence. It's not the same people that pay for congressional seats.
Okay.
So when CNN tells you, flabbergasted, how could anyone condone such violence? Like this is ideology. My condemnation, my personal condemnation, it's not actually worth anything because I have no power. CNN uses the compulsion to condemn in order to do its propaganda. So yeah, I don't condemn violence. I don't condemn Hamas. I would prefer not to, sir. Though I should say at the same time, ideology also is true in some ways. Like not somehow true. It's somehow true. And the truth here is that, yeah, it's true. We can't live in a society where people are arbitrarily shot in the streets. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't be a workable society. That's the true bit. But what's absolutely false is to say that violence is insane, that violence is inhuman, purposeless, never justified.
It's insane.
That's completely ahistorical nonsense. Violence has been an excellent, terrible, rational tool to many ends at many times. Some good, some bad, whatever. But all I mean to say is I'm not so sure that if we had a couple more of these, that they would just try to replace the Hydra heads. I think a couple more of these types of events would solve these systemic issues, at least in part, or they'd go down that path to supposedly stop these complex and unsolvable problems, like access to guns and firearms and blah blah blah. Anyway, Luigi chose an exchange. There's that term again. He chose to make a trade. He exchanged his freedom to get this guy got. There's nothing really psychotic about that, and nothing even evil about that particularly. It just seems like a pretty rational exchange. But then again, it's only certain violences are evil, and this is supposed to be one of them. But not everyone seems to be on board with that valuing of this particular trade.
Good and evil is a good sign. I was joking earlier or last episode. I can't remember when I said it, but the news definitely lives on that shit. And if that's not a sign of ideology, it's a sign of we we've talked about Roland Barthes' mythologies before. Especially applied to like a wrestling match or something, right? The news
Kayfabe.
kind of falls into that really easily. I mean, that's what they run on, good and evil, right? The evil has killed this good family man who's makes all this money and he's so good. Look how many people he employs, and he's a healthcare guy. Like, he's saving people's lives with this healthcare coverage. Like, oh my God, like what a tragedy has occurred. Like, there's your ideology too. And I would just say the ideology, just to go back to what Diego said earlier, there is a certain, I don't know if you call it liberal metaphysics, but you could say individualism here, right? Because what we're talking about with the healthcare issue and the sentiment around this is structural violence. Pills sent me that article or that paper earlier that was talking about Engels and the return of his concept of social murder. And that is basically what healthcare companies are in the business of, if not social murder, of at least choosing who lives and who dies, who gets help and who gets refused. And then, but they have to individualize it. We can't picture violence like that. We don't know violence in these slow, systemic, kind of non-personalized ways. We need them to be like this. We need them to be individual with a face and sensation around it, and quick and dirty and easy to fit into the 24-hour news cycle, and then capitalize for political points. Like all of that I would say that it is not, if that's not all kind of liberal ideology, at least it's metaphysical, individualistic kind of stuff, right?
I think within the modern ontology, like modernism is probably a better word for the framing I was trying to do instead of liberal. Modern in the sense that, it's humanism, free will, free market ideology. It's like what they're saying is that only the free market has the right to decide who lives and dies. Like we are free individuals that are acting our desire on the market, but in the end, the market itself is the only proprietor of moral judgment justifiable enough to say who lives and dies.
And we're all on the same moral standard too. Like that poor lady who steals an apple to feed the kid, and that rich guy who can just buy 5,000 apples. Well, the one who stole is same moral standard, right? We can't take into account the situation. And then there's this idea that somehow this is an anti-capitalist act. And then there's this connection to some review he wrote on Goodreads of a Ted Kaczynski book they claim was by an account that he owned. So there's this kind of anarchist. I mean, I'm complicating it, but I think these things are, ideology, like we said, it's not a question of the truth or falsity of ideas in an ideological sense. It's the way appearance is part of the reality of anything that we're dealing with.
I mean, it's incorrect in the sense that he doesn't have a plan to overthrow capitalism. Obviously, that's not what the goal was here. He sees an injustice. The correctly identifies the face of that injustice, which is not migrants or trans people. It's the class of CEOs that run something that literally everybody needs, that in the rest of the developed world is a right that we don't even think about or worry about at all.
I meant connecting it.
Sorry, he correctly identifies it, but then takes it on his shoulders. I have to do something to end this, and like right or wrong, probably wrong. We don't totally know the ramifications,
the outcome.
We don't really know, but it's probably wrong to have one individual in prison for the rest of his life for killing one guy. Now, maybe he becomes a famous intellectual and inspires the revolution from prison. Who's to say? But it's not like this was part of a grand plan, right?
But wait, did he correctly identify the source? I mean, the source of the problem isn't really the CEOs; it's the system. I mean, it's like healthcare laws. Yeah.
No, but he mentions the system in the manifesto.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Like based on the manifesto, it would be a stretch to believe that he thinks the guy he shot is significant in some way, or that killing him will change anything. Because what he says is our outcomes are horrible and the parasites had it coming.
Yeah, that's true.
But he, in a way, he embodies the system in the person. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like like that's why I began with this framing of like is the metaphysical problem, the ideology is the problem. The way he explains how reality function is his problem, and he's only able to impersonate the problem in the CEO, as if but you know, like, I don't even believe he truly believes that. It's like he's voting with his gun, you know, like this sentence, like in the US you vote with $1, or in the market you vote with your purchasing power. It's like he's acting out the inability to transform his reality by voting. So he's voting with a 3D printed gun.
And it's the deeply ingrained individualism in this culture as well. Because even I try to explain to people, at least my opinion, that, you know, taking away Trudeau, getting rid of Biden, getting rid of Trump, those are just individuals. It's not going to do anything to the problems that that you think they represent, right?
Or
getting
Maduro.
rid of these figureheads, these getting rid of Maduro and like having a just outcome for that election is not going to get rid of the underlying problems that these sort of things are symptoms of.
Yeah.
And this sort of surface level focus on personalities and individual humans, and this sort of overestimation of their agency and their effects on the world around them is, I think,
ideology doesn't have a history.
If not ideological, it's definitely like a deep cultural assumption that many in the West share, and that I think doesn't really get you very far in at least wider geopolitical conflicts.
Yeah. History is in materiality, not in ideology.
Yeah, and broader patterns. Individuals can play a role at certain junctures, and that's not in question. It's just, you know.
And what can we say about the glorifying of this mythical figure now on social media, on the hero aspect of this guy?
Oh, the folk hero, lionizing him as a sexy folk hero, as some like to put it.
Yeah, the fact that he was ripped.
Oh yeah, he's jacked and.
He did take one for the team. Or wait, he took one for the class.
He took one for the class. We can say that. Yeah. He was ripped, man. The guy was ripped. I can say that much. As a guy that goes to the gym daily, damn, he took some testosterone, man.
Well, he's 26. It's easier to ward off fat when you're 26.
True.
I don't know.
And he also seems short, so that's also an advantage on his side.
I don't see how he's as hot as people are saying. He doesn't, you know, I'm not the best judge of.
Well, maybe being a renegade, being a rebel makes you hotter.
You know, the most puzzling part of the story to me is he had in his backpack a wad of Monopoly money.
That's weird.
What does it mean?
Really?
Yeah.
This money, simulacrum of money?
3D printed gun, 3D printed gun, fake money. Fake abs. So did the Gulf War take place or no?
I guess we gotta see.
I don't think the Gulf War was real. I don't think this event was real.
Here's how it could be real.
Constructed.
Because for an event to be real, it has to break up what's expected. It has to break up the old line of causality, right? The line of cause and effect has to change for an event to be considered real, in that it's not predicted by the model. Okay, but that means events only retroactively become real. But here's how this event might become real. Again, we don't matter because we don't make decisions that change the situation. We don't make situations that change the world. Maybe our own lives once in a while, but not very frequently. But ideology up to this point, our common sense says with humanism, oh, everyone's ultimately the same. Like even the people that own your life, they're ultimately the same as you. Everyone has worries. Everyone has body image issues. Everyone fights with their moms and loves their kids. There's no difference between you and these billionaires. People are people and experience is ultimately the same. Now, we can believe this because of reality TV shows and tabloids and interviews, and they tweet just like us. However, if they decided based on event like this or a couple more, like it's not safe for them to be around the public, they need to have armored cars and mercenary armies and drone systems surveilling them, we need to not appear on TV and not do interviews because we might become a target. If they start living out their class capacity that way, the empathy would disappear. And I don't know, that could be a way that this would become a real event.
Yeah, that was the interesting part, because that's the comment I made earlier. What would be great to see here, it's a separation between social sexiness and the title of CEO. Like, if we can move to a point where the title of CEO is something to be ashamed of, not necessarily ashamed, but scared of carrying, then it's a significant event. Like, if from now on we say, like, for example, CEO security spiked the day after the event. Like, a lot of CEOs were like looking for private security, personal teams and whatnot. Like, if we see this, that now the spectacle is going to be like, man, you're a CEO, you have to hide your title. That's going to be weird, like, we're no longer socially aspiring to become CEOs. Like, this is the zombie apocalypse of material reality, like the few being scared of being eaten by the many.
Yeah, the antipathy seems to be kind of localized to the healthcare insurance industry, but it doesn't mean it's there forever.
That could be an outcome that is interesting, because today you can be at Starbucks and have a coffee with a CEO and you don't even know it.
Yeah. I guess I didn't have a fully formed thought about this, but yeah, all the CEOs, them taking the names and addresses of their CEOs off of like the web pages of big like health insurance companies and stuff. I mean, in a way, it expresses a kind of class solidarity, similarity. But in another way, it's the same sort of reaction after a school shooting or after 9/11, security. There's this larger sort of security response, I guess, that now all the airports take a extra time to get through, and all the schools have metal detectors in them.
Yeah. Another reason the condemnation hasn't worked as well is because he doesn't have anything specifically to molecularize him. Like, he's not Muslim. He's not in a cult. He's not an incel, presumably. He's not bullied, not a communist. He has plenty of future prospects. So they can't pin any identity on him that separates him from everyone else who hates the insurance industry. We can't even have the quote unquote mental health conversation, because this is not the manifesto of an insane person. It's not even the manifesto of a weirdo. It's just a dude. So they have nothing to explain it except, oh, maybe there are real problems. And I guess they do begrudgingly admit to that.
Yeah,
but
in a way, it's perfect that it was this guy that committed the crime, like you say, because there's no scapegoat. There's no easy way out to justify the event.
Ivy League education. Did you guys know before this thing that University of Pennsylvania is in the Ivy League? I had no...
I had no idea. Yeah, me neither. But what is interesting here is to say that, for example, okay, so the system creates inequality. The system creates anger, pain, and resentment. And people, since they are ideologically kidnapped, they don't know where to direction that struggle, that pain, that suffering, that fear. So they can only direct it towards this. And what would be interesting to say is to say that for the sustenance and for the sustainability of the system, is good to have these CEOs to sacrifice, so the system doesn't change. So if they take away the face of capitalism, then people will only be able to direct the hatred towards the system. You see, for the system, this is great. It's like, yeah, keep killing CEOs. This is awesome for me. I'll keep substituting them, and it's even better because they're going to be afraid to show. Probably they're not going to be as glorified. Salaries are going to be slightly different. Conditions are going to be different. But the system itself can stay. The system doesn't need to change. But if they choose to hide the CEOs, then suddenly people is not going to be able to direct that frustration towards a person. Then they will have to direct that pain or frustration towards something else. Ideally, if you have class consciousness and a critical and let's say a structured critique of reality, then you can see that the system is to blame. But today, it's clear in his manifesto and this action that people still is not able to identify or pin down the responsibility in objects. We still depend on the relationship only between subjects.
That's a good point. I think that's why some structuralist Marxists say we have to get rid of humanism because humanism allows humans to play the scapegoat. It gives you too much faith in not only yourself and your own freedom, but also too much faith in other people's selves and their freedom. Good point.
I mean, but what will come of this and what is going to follow, the discussions and things are already being shaped, right? Like, you know, we have almost a century of Cold War communist containment experience. and I'm sure these private media corporations have that knowledge is probably passed down in those circles like tradition. Like they're bathed and they're being dipped in baby blood and before they're made CEOs. I think it's already being shaped. The ideology, just to throw that word in as many times as possible, is already at work containing and shaping this event.
So it's interesting that the system itself, it's able to sacrifice their own priestess in order to sustain its living. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that will literally happen. I was joking before about the CEO Congressional Defense Bill, only because they would never call it that. They would call it something like the Business Protection Act, which makes it illegal or a hate crime to say anything against negatively about a job creator.
Like a cool closing question would be to say, do you think this event is more or less likely to occur again, given the fact that this was such a big media spectacle?
Oh,
I think there's got to be, you know how the school shooters, this is obviously morbid and abhorrent, but they try to go for a high score.
Oh my God, you think so?
What, you never been to 4chan?
Now we're going to have vigilantes stopping each other?
Well, the vigilantes will probably be going for like how high of a CEO can
you got
get?
number 17. I can get number 5.
Yeah, exactly. This guy only made $10 million a year. He wasn't that
high on the list.
He wasn't that up
My
there.
God.
What about the
It's
bankers?
like the anime One Piece, where you have like these foreign pirates and they have prices on their heads. Now we're gonna have CEOs with prices on their heads like One Piece. That's a nice image Photoshop for someone to do.
yeah.
So yeah, like I've said, I don't think there's any grounds to call him crazy, but based on the amount of attention he got, positive attention, that's got to bring out the crazies, don't you think? Like if someone was gonna go out in a daycare, you know, that's horrible, nihilistic. It's a bad note to end on, and everybody hates you. But if you have everyone on your side for doing the event, and then he's probably going to get like interviews from prison. He'll get a book deal if he
for
wants.
sure,
and all this
for
shit.
sure.
Like there's going to be copycats, no doubt.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I this is where I leap far beyond my competency into speculation. But I'm sure if you're just like a really unhappy individual and you want to get attention, there's no place to go that just says, okay, what are my options? I could go shoot up a school. I could find a CEO and murder them. I could light myself on fire in front of Parliament. I mean, what people choose to do with their, I don't even know what you call it. Yeah, their id, not even their ideologies, just their id, their frustration, whatever you want to call it, it's not just random. The school shootings, I mean, it just seems like the profit motive of gun sales is going to make us not ever do anything about that systemically. But killing CEOs, maybe that's a little too disruptive.
There's logistically no way to prevent that from happening. There's too many people.
That is true.
They're going to get this is the whole idea of class struggle, is there's always more of us than there are.
Yeah. The antagonism is undeniable. Yeah.
So this would be considered a successful event as a terrorist event in a Baudrillardian sense of terrorism. It's a successful event if you force something that the system cannot respond to, so they have to over-respond. They have to like show what's really at the base of the system. And if that happens, then people are going to recognize that the ideology that is underneath all the propaganda, that even is a lie. Now, the chances of that happening, not very high, because that takes some abstract thinking, and we're not very good at that anymore. Or if we ever were.
Thank you, blue screen in my face. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something interesting about this, besides just the monopoly money in his backpack, which I hope gets covered in his Netflix documentary.
Just enough scandal for the system to stay the same. Just enough.
Yeah.
All right, well done, guys. That was good for an ideology doubleheader.
pretty cool.
I wouldn't
covering the
I wouldn't
news.
discount that this guy also had a mental break lately too, with the no sex thing, the monopoly money in the pocket, and the weird manifesto.
And the McDonald's.
There's yeah, and then
How much sex could he have been getting to have a mental break after no
With
sex for
with
10
those
months?
abs, oh my God, pills.
yeah.
I will think like twice or 3 times a day at least.
And they said he was flirting with the lady in some hotel lobby or something just before. I don't know. He's
Wasn't it Starbucks?
well, that
No
doesn't
idea.
seem like the behavior of an incel. I can tell you that. They're not flirting with anybody. I don't think they're a little more angsty than that, but I'm not an expert anyway, but I don't know.
You know, you're buying into ideology because you're trying to give the guy excuses to separate him from everyone else. Don't fall for it. This is just humanism.
Right. True that.
Good
Yeah.
enough for me. Very, very, very good.
Well, guys, good episode. Thank you. Good 2 episodes. Thank you, guys, and catch us later
All right.
for more ideology.
Thanks for listening.
Oof.
Just so you can edit that in later if you
All
want.
right. We're done.